So if you've been following the news out of Japan lately, especially maybe around the recent elections,
Yeah.
you've probably noticed quite a bit of, well, anti-foreigner rhetoric bubbling up. It seems pretty loud right now.
It really is hard to miss. And honestly, that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today.
Okay.
Because beneath all that political noise, there's this huge accelerating economic and social reality that Japan just can't ignore.
Right, this reliance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our mission really is to cut through that noise and explore the facts about foreign labor. Not just the numbers, but the actual concrete strategies for coexistence, Kiyosei, that are already working on the ground.
Okay, great. Let's unpack that then, starting with the scale, because these numbers, they really do challenge that idea of Japan being able to, stay isolated. How big is the foreign workforce right now?
The reliance is, well, it's fundamental. As of last October, the official count was approximately 2.3 million foreign workers.
2.3 million.
Yeah. And that number itself is significant, but what's really crucial here is the growth rate. Okay? We've been seeing annual increases, around 10% for a little while, but the latest data, year on year, it spiked to 12.4%.
Wow, 12.4%. That's not gradual.
Not at all. This isn't some slow trickle. It's an accelerating dependency.
Yeah.
It suggests this is way past being a temporary fix.
A real structural shift. And the sources mentioned the main nationalities. Vietnam leads, then China, Philippines.
That's right. Vietnam, then China, the Philippines, Nepal, Indonesia, Brazil, and Myanmar are the major groups.
Okay, so diverse origins. But where is this demand actually hitting hardest? Where is it most urgent?
Well, manufacturing is still the biggest single sector overall, employing about 26% of foreign workers.
Right.
But the real story, the place where the growth is explosive, is in core social infrastructure. This is where Japan's demographic crunch really meets the need for foreign labor head on.
Ah, okay, so we're talking about those critical domestic needs, care work, construction.
Exactly. Medical and welfare saw a massive 28.1% increase year on year in foreign workers.
28%.
And construction jumped 22.7%. So what this data really shows is that Japan is, in effect, outsourcing the staffing for its own demographic crisis. This labor isn't just about, making cars or electronics anymore. It's becoming fundamental to staffing nursing homes, hospitals, building roads, infrastructure.
Take them away and the whole system creaks.
It really does. The social safety net starts to look very fragile without them. That definitely puts the political arguments in a different light.
It certainly does. Now, you mentioned the diversity of nationalities. This workforce isn't just one homogenous group, right? The visa situation adds a whole layer of complexity.
Oh, absolutely. The visa statuses are incredibly varied, and that really shapes the experience and the level of integration for different groups.
So how does that break down? What are the main categories?
Okay, broadly speaking, you have a few key types. Think about Brazilians and Filipinos. A large share of them have Tausha status.
Long-term residents.
Exactly. Often people of Japanese descent, the Nikkei, they generally have no work restrictions. They're settled, often have families, deeper roots in the community.
Yeah.
They're structurally more stable.
Okay, so that's one group. What else?
Then you contrast that with, say, workers from Vietnam and Indonesia. A high proportion of them are here under the Technical Intern Chinese system, the TIDP.
Right, the intern program. That sounds more temporary.
It is, by design. It's structured, often tied to a specific company for a set period. Now, the hope or the policy expectation is that many will eventually transition to the specified skilled worker visa, which offers more stability. But that initial phase is much more constrained.
I see. And then there's the third group, right? Like the Nepalese workers you often see.
Yes, that's another important category. Many workers from Nepal, especially visible maybe in Tokyo convenience stores or restaurants, originally came on student visas.
So they're balancing studies and work.
Correct. They're managing both, often plugging vital gaps in the service sector. It shows real initiative, but it also means their situation can be less secure, constantly juggling those two demands.
So these different paths, they mean communities arrive with really different levels of security, different needs, different long-term plans, potentially.
Precisely. And cities and local areas have to manage all of this diversity simultaneously. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Which probably explains why we see workers concentrating in certain areas, right? Tokyo, Aichi, Osaka, where the jobs are.
Yeah.
But it's also about community, isn't it? Language, culture, just finding support.
Absolutely. That clustering is a natural human response. especially when you're navigating a new environment. You need that network. And, this isn't exactly a new phenomenon for Japan.
You mean like historical examples?
Yeah, think about the Chinatowns. Yokohama, Kobe, they date back to the Meiji era.
Wow, that far back.
And for generations, they've functioned as these, almost self-sufficient ecosystems. Places for housing, finding work, shopping, community life. Often initially without needing perfect Japanese, they became anchored.
Integrated into the local economy over decades.
Exactly. And we see modern parallels in Tokyo, too, which are really interesting. The sources mention the Indian communities.
Like Okachimachi and Nishikasai.
Yeah, Okachimachi is the older one, sort of centered around the jewelry trade. Some families, there are third-generation business owners, really embedded.
And Nishikasai is newer, mostly IT workers, I think.
That's right, primarily IT engineers and their families. And here's a fascinating detail about Nishikasai, the Indian International School there.
Yeah.
It's become so well regarded, so popular, that apparently Japanese families are now actively trying to get their kids enrolled there.
No kidding. So it's not just about the immigrant community needing the school. The local Japanese community sees value in it too.
Precisely. That signals a real shift, doesn't it? From simple necessity to mutual appeal. It moves beyond just tolerance towards genuine integration and valuing what newcomers bring.
That's a huge difference. It reminds me, actually, way back in the 1990s, I spent some time at a place called Oyamashi in Tochigi.
Okay.
There was a big Fujitsu factory there, employed a lot of Nikkei Brazilians. And I vividly remember payday, seeing these long, long queues outside the local Ashikaga bank.
For sending money home? Remittances.
Exactly. It was all about remittances. And honestly, the interaction between the Brazilian workers and the local Japanese residents seemed minimal.
It's just parallel existences, almost.
Pretty much. Oyamashi felt quite culturally conservative then, and the focus seemed purely economic, earn money, send back. There wasn't really any visible effort towards integration from either side, it felt like.
That's a really valuable snapshot because it highlights how things can evolve. That transactional phase you described, compare it to Nishikasai now.
Yeah, it's night and day.
What we often see is, as immigrant communities settle, as language skills improve, as people move into more skilled or diverse professions, that absolute necessity to cluster just for basic survival lessons.
They integrate more organically.
Right. Especially in the big cities, you see more blending into the wider community. The integration becomes less forced, more natural over time.
So while the 90s experience might have felt like separation, the sources we looked at show that today, coexistence Kyosei can actually work incredibly well. But it needs effort, right? It needs proactive steps.
It absolutely does. And there are some fantastic, really inspiring local models that prove it's possible when communities decide to lean in.
Okay, let's talk about those case studies that show success.
First one, Urakawa Town. It's up in Hokkaido. Tiny place, maybe 10,000 people, famous for breeding racehorses.
Racehorses, okay, interesting.
And somehow this small town attracted over 300 stable hands from India.
300 in a town of 10,000. How did that happen?
Apparently, it wasn't some big government recruitment drive. It was pure word of mouth, driven by economics. The monthly salary they could earn in Urakawa working with horses might be more than a whole year's salary back in India.
Wow, okay, that's a powerful incentive. But how did the town handle that influx?
This is the brilliant part. The town administration was incredibly proactive. They didn't wait for problems. They jumped right in.
Like what?
They prepared things like mother and child health handbooks in Hindi. They actually hired Hindi-speaking support staff to work in the town office.
That's amazing. Just practical, direct support in their own language.
Exactly. And the result, deep integration, real mutual respect. You see joint participation in local festivals. They co-host kids' summer events. There's strong trust with the local residents associations. It's grassroots coexistence working because the town made a conscious effort.
That's fantastic. Okay, what's the second example?
The second one is Hamamatsu City. This is a bigger, mid-sized city example showing how you can scale up that proactive approach.
Hamamatsu, known for manufacturing, and historically, a lot of Nikkei Brazilians and Peruvians. Right?
That's its history. But now, like many places, it's seeing growth in Vietnamese and Indonesian trainees as well. So the diversity is increasing.
And what makes the Hamamatsu model stand out?
It's really about systematic, comprehensive support from the administration. They have a dedicated multicultural coexistence center.
Doing what?
Offering free services, consultations, advice in Portuguese and Spanish, crucial Japanese language classes. And importantly, they've worked hard to make public services accessible.
That's so.
Multilingual signs, posters everywhere. You go to the city health office or the tax office, and there are pamphlets and guidance in multiple languages. They try to remove those basic bureaucratic barriers.
That makes a huge difference.
And they also link public and private sectors effectively. Regular job fairs specifically for skilled foreign workers. Local companies are encouraged, even incentivized, to offer better post-hire support, help finding housing, maybe guarantees of ongoing language training.
It's a coordinated effort.
Yes. The Hamamatsu model is successful because it combines that strategic citywide scale with really meticulous practical support involving the administration, local businesses, and crucially, the residents too.
These local examples are really encouraging. They prove that when the support structures are there, Kyosei isn't just a nice idea, it's actually achievable.
Definitely.
But we also need to talk about the flip side.
Yeah.
Where the system breaks down. Because local success can be undermined if the national policies have, well, serious gaps or flaws.
That's the critical point. Local goodwill and effort can only go so far if the national framework creates instability or uncertainty. And there's a really difficult example of this right now in Kawaguchi City.
With the Kurdish community there.
Exactly. Many are Turkish nationals, and they're applying for refugee status in Japan.
Which, as we know, is an incredibly difficult process in Japan. The recognition rate is extremely low.
It's notoriously slow and restrictive. Officials often determine there isn't large-scale systematic persecution of Kurds in Turkey that warrants refugee status under Japan's interpretation. So very few applications are approved.
Okay, but what happens then if they're denied?
This is where the systemic failure, the real limbo, kicks in. Even if refugee status is denied, Japan rarely carries out forced deportations on a large scale, especially if there are humanitarian concerns or appeals processes dragging on.
So people just stay without legal status.
Yes. You end up with this growing population who might live in Kawaguchi for years. Their kids might be in local schools. They're part of the community in many ways.
Yeah.
But they lack legal residency status.
And no legal status means no work permit.
Correct, except in very rare specific circumstances. So you have people who need to survive to feed their families, but they're legally barred from working.
Which inevitably pushes people towards
Undocumented or illegal work, simply to get by. The system itself, by failing to provide a timely and definitive resolution, either grants status or ensure a prompt and secure deportation, inadvertently creates this precarious situation.
It's an administrative gap that people fall into.
Exactly. And it's not good for anyone, not for the individuals living in constant uncertainty, and not for the community trying to manage the social consequences. There's an urgent need for the government to review this process for faster resolution.
That uncertainty must be incredibly stressful. And it raises a question about vulnerability more broadly, even for those who do have stable status. What about the long-term residents we talked about earlier, the Teijusha?
That's another key vulnerability the sources highlight. Even those with the stable long-term residency, like many Brazilians and Filipinos, are often concentrated in specific sectors, particularly manufacturing.
And often not in regular full-time jobs.
Frequently, yes. They often work in non-regular positions, dispatch workers, contract employees. This makes them particularly vulnerable to economic downturns.
Kind of like economic shock absorbers.
That's a good way to put it. When a factory cuts back production or closes a line due to economic shifts, who are often the first to lose their jobs.
The non-regular workers, which includes a high proportion of these foreign residents.
Exactly. Even if they've lived in Japan for 10, 15 years, built a life there. The point here is that these long-term foreign residents are part of the community, contributing to the economy, and they need and deserve the same considerations for job stability and the same protections as Japanese workers in similar positions.
So wrapping this up, it seems clear foreign labor isn't just helpful anymore. It's utterly essential for Japan's social fabric.
It really is. And the success stories, like Urakawa and Hamamatsu, prove that coexistence is possible. It works when there's mutual respect, but also crucially when there's strategic, practical support in place.
So policymakers need a clearer strategy, maybe. Selecting workers for key industries, but then committing to robust support language, housing, integration help.
Yes, that combination. And critically, the national systems need urgent reform to close those administrative gaps we talked about, like the situation facing the Kurdish community. People need certainty and stability, whether that means granting status or resolving cases promptly. If small towns can figure out practical solutions, surely the national government can too.
It seems the will needs to be there at all levels. We've seen what towns like Urakawa can achieve with proactive grassroots effort. So, maybe a final thought for you, our listeners. Urakawa built incredible trust through very practical local actions, like hiring Hindi-speaking staff right into their town hall.
Simple but effective.
So think about that. What's maybe one small practical thing you could do? In your own workplace, maybe your neighborhood. Could be a conscious effort to learn something new, a simple conversation, even just a friendly greeting. How can you start building that small bit of trust right where you are? Because ultimately, that first small step multiplied across communities is how real coexistence moves forward.